We've got this beautiful M4 Comp in the showroom here with us, and although most people would consider this car hard to beat, probably agree with them, it's still missing a little something. In today's video, we're going to show you how to install our V3 OBD2 gauge on the BMW F30 and F8. We try to design each of our gauges with ease of install in mind, and this car is no exception. It's probably among the easiest to get the vent out, and if you need a tool at all to remove the vent, probably just a trim pry tool, no fasteners or anything like that. Then when we get to the display and vent portion, you might need a little pocket screwdriver and pair of needle nose. But before we do anything on our install, as always, we want to test our gauge before we get started. So, if you're watching this video, you probably have three main components for your gauge. You're going to have a display in or not in a vent already. You've got your OBD2 and main harness, and then you've got your control box. So go ahead and plug your harness into your control box, plug your display into the other end of the control box, and then plug your OBD2 connector down into the OBD2 port. Once you connect it, you might see some dots blinking across the bottom. Go ahead and start your engine. You'll see some dots. They should speed up, followed by some other blinking lights, and then it should fire up. Your first startup might take some extra time, and that's because the gauge is pairing with the network. Just cycle through and make sure you're reading some data off the OBD2 port. So we got coolant temp there, 91, we're warming up. Let's go over to RPM, that's a live feed. All right, so we're getting live data, we're good. So we can go ahead and shut the engine back off, disconnect the harness. Now we can go ahead and remove the vent from the vehicle. Like I said before, you might want to use a trim pry tool, but a lot of times this can come up just with your hands. Give it a gentle pry on the bottom, it should release on the bottom, and then you can kind of wiggle it, and it'll come right out of the dash. While you're in here, and now you've got this hole here, go ahead and push out on your side panel here to get access there, and that should be enough. You shouldn't have to remove it all the way. That'll just make it easier for us to run the OBD2 harness down and tuck the control box in the dash. Now let's jump over to the workbench and get the display mounted in this vent. We're here at the workbench with our display and our vent and trim assembly, and like I mentioned before, you probably only need a small pocket screwdriver and then maybe a pair of needle nose pliers depending on how you want to do part of the display in a minute here. Let's go ahead and start with our pocket screwdriver, and there are some tabs right here on the top of the vent. We can go ahead and pry up on that and get those disconnected, just like that. Trim should come right off. Now we can take all four of these horizontal slats out as an assembly by prying up on the bottom of each side bracket here. So if you get your little screwdriver in the bottom and loosen that, and then loosen this one. Now when we pull this out, it can fall apart, so you want to pinch the whole assembly together. So you want to be a little gentle with it. If it does fall apart, it's easy to put back together, but why do that if you don't want to? So now on this setup, our display is going to take the position of the top two slats. So we only need to remove the top two. So what I like to do is pinch the bottom two together, kind of in between the bottom two slats. And now I can remove this bar on the top of here. Move that nub and then kind of move the bar over. This bar holds all the slats in the same position together as you go up and down. So you wiggle it around a little bit. We can get the top one out, set it aside. And now we want to get this next one off. I'm trying to be very gentle here so I don't explode the whole thing. Sometimes it helps to take this slat over here off first. Now we can get this one free. And wiggle it out, like so. So now that we have both of those slats out, this is the portion where you might want to use needle nose pliers. And what we're talking about here is now that these top two slats are gone, this little unison bar, or whatever you want to call it, is no longer held in place. So what I like to do is take needle nose and bend that over so that once it's assembled in the vent, it will have some tension on the side of the vent, and then I bend the top back, it'll slide like that. So now it's curved about like that. Alternatively, we have this small 3D printed wrench that we make, and that can take the place of this metal bar if you don't want to go that route. Get that out. And it's just going to snap in place of that bar on these bottom two slats. And once you snap it together, it is quite firm, but that's to create tension, so when you set this up and down, it stays where you leave it. I actually prefer using the OEM bar and just bending it. It's a little easier, it's a little quicker. That's just me though, so you can do it either way. We're gonna use the bar in this situation, so I'll just snap that back in place. Now that we have the top two slats out of the way, we can put our display in place. Just gonna set in on that side, clip it in on this side, and now we're set up. Now we wanna make sure our flap in the back of the vent is open so that you can see daylight through it. And then our cable is going to feed through on the far left side. We also wanna make sure that the cable has the pink side down, and we do not want this cable to be twisted up. It is a thin ribbon cable, but it's quite durable as long as it's not twisted up. So we'll go ahead and feed this connector through the left side on the very bottom, like that. Pull all the slack right out the back, and then feed your display and slat assembly up. And now another important step is to make sure this fork intersects with this shaft on the center vent slat there. And that's what gives you your side-to-side movement. And you may need to take your pocket screwdriver and push that little metal bar in just a tad, and that will snap into place. Now that we have the display and slats back in place, you can test to make sure your up and down and then side-to-side movement is working well. And then we can come around to the back side. And what I like to do is make sure you have a little bit of slack pushed into the vent, so that way it's not pulled tight. That can hamper your side-to-side movement. Once you have your slack set up into the vent a little bit, go ahead and close the vent, and that will pinch your display cable in place. And now you can just literally pinch it around the bottom like that, and this will be safe to install in the car. You might notice if you buy your display pre-installed in the OEM vent that this is glued in place underneath the foam. We do that when we do the installs just to have a extra little step in there for you, but you do not need to do that. We can now clip our trim back on, which we will lock it in on the bottom first and then just kind of roll it into position. Now our display is fully put together and ready to go back into the car. Now that we're back at the car with our display already installed in the vent, the first thing we're going to want to do is take advantage of this nice big open hole to route our OBD2 harness from the OBD2 port up through this side and up to here eventually. This might be the trickiest part of the install just because this little glove box is kind of in the way, but rather than take all this apart, if you spend a little time, you will be able to fish this up from right next to your OBD2 port, straight up to here where you can reach it, and then you can pull it through. So maybe 30 seconds of trying beats taking all that stuff apart. We're now routed through. We can hang this down like so and plug it into our main harness. And we can plug the main harness into our control box. Go ahead and plug your OBD2 connector to your OBD2 port, which is right next to where you fed the wire up. Now that we've got all that together, we can go ahead and feed our display cable through this opening and out the side as well. Make sure this doesn't get twisted and pinched. And then we can pull that slack through as we set this down into place, and you'll want to kind of set the top in place. It kind of slides up in and locks, and then the bottom just snaps into place like that. Now we can plug our display into our control box. And then for the sake of this video, I'm not going to bundle all this and wrap it. I will just tuck it in here, but you can bundle this or wrap it in foam tape however you want. We're constantly taking gauges in and out of our own personal cars for development stuff, and I've never had an issue with a rattle yet. Go ahead and close your side panel. Close your little glove box. Now we can fire it up, make sure everything's good. There we got RPM. Got some oil temp. Intake air temp. And now we can do the nice peel. And there you have it. That's the install for this car. Pretty simple process. If you got any questions about this install process or this gauge, please let us know in the comments below. We'd be happy to help you out with that. Also, let your friends know about our products. It really helps us out. We're a small business and word of mouth is just huge. Click that thumbs up if this video helped you out. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell so you can see our new videos when they come out. We really appreciate your help. Thanks, guys.